Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Now, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at pickdawgz.com at the Premium Picks tab. I'm running a daily $15 MLB best bet, so you can check it out at Pick Dawgz Premium. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Wednesday, June 1st. First up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Brad Keller and Connor Pilkington are your starters here. I can't really trust either of the starting pitching options in this one. I do think we're going to see a higher scoring game here. Brad Keller started the season strong for Kansas City, but recently he has really struggled, allowing plenty of earned runs. And you look at his last outing against the Twins, he only went 4 innings of work with 11 base hits allowed, 6 earned runs, 2 home runs, and 3 walks as well. And his last 4 starts, he's really struggled, and I'm going to have to fade him in this spot against a Guardians team that's top 10 in baseball in team OPS against righties. Now, on the other side, Connor Pilkington, I've watched a good amount of his game this season, or his games this season. I do think he's got good stuff, good strikeout stuff, and he's only 24 years old, so I think he has plenty of time to develop into a strong starter. But right now, I've also noticed that he's missing in and outside the zone with some of his pitches. You look last time out, 3 1/3 innings, 7 base hits, and 4 walks allowed. So he's getting hit, and he's also giving up the walks, which is usually a deadly combination on the mound. The Royals bats really struggled at the beginning of the season, but they're getting better as time goes on. We're seeing guys like Bobby Witt Jr. and Whit Merrifield start to hit for Kansas City. So I think both teams are going to be able to score in this one. I'm going to take the over in the Royals Guardians. In our next game, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the New York Mets. Now, we're going to see Evan Lee and Carlos Carrasco as the starters in this one. Now, I know some of you guys are begging me to not fade the Mets again, and I'm going to take the Mets in this spot. I do think this is a good spot for them, laying the run line here. They are big favorites, so, not the most value on the board, but Evan Lee is going to be making his major league debut for the Nationals in this spot. We've seen him in the minor leagues this season in Double-A Harrisburg. He's pitched a total of 30 innings. He has a 3.6 ERA. Decent strikeout stuff, but he has had issues with the walks going up against a tough New York Mets lineup. The Mets don't hit lefties too well, and Lee is a lefty, so a little bit of concern there, but Carlos Carrasco is pitching well for the Mets this season. I'm really surprised to see him pitching so sharply after last year with New York. Really wasn't a successful season for Cookie, but he is pitching well. Not the best outing last time against the Phillies, but the Mets still got the win and the run line cover in that one. In fact, in Carrasco's last 5 starts, the Mets have won 4 of those games and covered the run line in all 4 of those wins, including a game against these Washington Nationals where Carrasco went 6 2/3 innings of 2-run ball. So I'm going to take the Mets here on the run line and lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the St. Louis Cardinals hosting the San Diego Padres. Yu Darvish and Dakota Hudson are your probable starters. Now, we have 2 teams that have hit lefties really well this season, but not so much against righties. Cardinals 16th in baseball in team OPS against righties. Padres all the way down at 27th in the league in team OPS against righties. I do think Darvish is the better option here, and I do think the Padres bullpen is also stronger by quite a bit. Dakota Hudson is in the bottom 7th percentile in hard hit percentage, bottom 6th percentile in strikeout percentage, and the bottom 5th percentile in whiff and chase rate this season also. He is pitching a little bit unsustainably. I would go as far as saying a lot of bit unsustainably. 3.22 ERA. I do not think that's going to be holding up too much longer. Last time he gave up a ton of base runners against the Milwaukee Brewers in 4 2/3 innings, 5 base hits and 4 walks in that one, but didn't give up an earned run. He's been a magician on the mound this season, but I don't think his tricks are going to be working for too much longer. Yu Darvish has had his fair share of struggles this season, but he has pitched well lately. In his last 13 2/3 innings, he's only given up 2 earned runs with 12 strikeouts and 2 walks allowed. I think Darvish is in better form. I think the Padres have the better bullpen. I'm going to take San Diego here on the money line. In our next game, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Colorado Rockies. We're going to see Trevor Rogers and Antonio Senzatella on the mound for this one. Now, if these are the starters for this game, we don't have an official line out quite yet, so we could see a pitching change. But if these are the starters, I don't think this is going to be a game for the faint of heart. Trevor Rogers is struggling quite a bit in 2022, and recently he's had big issues with the long ball, giving up a lot of home runs lately. His ERA is now above 5, and he's going up against the Rockies team as number 2 in baseball in team OPS against left-handed pitching. So I do worry about Rogers in this one. On the other side, Antonio Senzatella has been injured the last couple starts, but when he was pitching back on May 10th and before, he was really struggling, allowing a ton of base hits. And when you put a lot of traffic on base at Coors Field, it's usually a bad sign for a starting pitcher. So I think both pitchers are going to get hit pretty hard, and I think the bullpens are going to make their way into this game really early in this one. This is going to be a back and forth game, in my opinion, offensively, especially if the wind is blowing out at Coors Field. I'm going to lean towards the over, and I'm going to lean slightly towards the Marlins here just because I think they have the better bullpen that can stop and earn a couple outs late in the game when they need it, but certainly not a game I'm rushing to bet. In our next game, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Oakland Athletics. Justin Verlander and Cole Irvin are your starters here. Now, Justin Verlander had a big-time pitching mismatch in his last game against the Mariners, but the Mariners were able to crush him in the early innings of that one, and Chris Flexen pitched really well against Houston in that start. Really one of the bigger surprise games I've seen this season. Verlander gave up 10 hits, 6 earned runs, and 4 home runs in that start. We really haven't seen him struggle at all this season, so a big surprise for me. His ERA is still at 2.03, which tells you how strong his start to the season was. And I'm not necessarily too worried about him going forward, especially going up against an Oakland A's lineup that has really struggled this season. Cole Irvin's not a guy that I back too often. I know he's pitching well this season, but I don't like the fact that he doesn't miss a lot of bats, doesn't earn a lot of strikeouts. He gave up 6 hits and 3 runs last time against the Rangers. I think the Houston Astros lineup is stronger than Texas, as I think they get to Irvin early in this one. I think Verlander bounces back. I'm going to take the Astros here on the run line, try to get a better price with the better team. In our next game, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Kyle Wright and Madison Bumgarner are your starters. Now, Kyle Wright had a phenomenal start to the 2022 season. Lately, he hasn't been as sharp, but still hasn't been pitching too poorly. Last time out, he gave up 3 earned runs in 6 2/3 innings against the Phillies, which is not too bad, not too great either. He had earned the loss in that game. Previous to that, though, 5 innings of shutout ball against the Marlins, pitched pretty well against the Padres, and struggled against the Red Sox back on May 10th. But, Madison Bumgarner, another guy that started the season strong, he's really struggled lately. You look at his last 2 outings, he's pitched 13 combined innings, giving up 9 earned runs, 5 home runs, and 10 strikeouts. So his strikeout numbers are actually going up from the beginning of the season, but the earned runs and home runs allowed are going up as well, and that's where I have the biggest problem with Bumgarner here. I know the Braves offense doesn't seem to be getting a ton done this season, but they're still number 3 in baseball in isolated power against left-handed pitching and number 7 in baseball in team OPS against left-handed pitching. I think they get the Bumgarner here. I think Wright does a good enough job to get the win for Atlanta. Give me the Braves here on the money line. In our next game, we see the New York Yankees hosting the Los Angeles Angels. Reed Detmers and Nestor Cortez, nasty Nestor, going at it in this one. Now, Reed Detmers threw a no-hitter this season, so how bad could he be? But he has struggled quite a bit lately ever since that no-hitter. He faced the Rangers twice, pitched 9 2/3 innings combined in those starts, gave up 8 earned runs and 4 home runs. Those were the last 2 starts since that no-hitter back on May the 10th. And he's going up against the Yankees lineup that has loved left-handed pitching this season. They're in the top 10 in baseball in team OPS against lefties and number 1 in the league in isolated power against lefties. That's a bad sign when you read Detmers giving up 4 home runs in your last 10 innings, going to Yankee Stadium, a very hitter-friendly ballpark, facing a team that's very powerful, and going up against a guy like Nestor Cortez that really hasn't given up an inch this season, 4-1 with a 1.7 ERA. The Angels prefer right-handed pitchers offensively to begin with, as they're outside the top 10 in team OPS against lefties this season. I'm going to take the Yankees in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the San Francisco Giants taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Pretty good pitching matchup on our hands here with Carlos Rodon and Aaron Nola. Now, Carlos Rodon, 3.6 ERA, a 2.62 FIP. He's striking out a lot of batters, has had issues with the walks at time this season, and I do think Aaron Nola is the slightly better option here on the mound for Philadelphia. He's been able to strike out a ton of batters also. He has limited walks, has run into a little bit of issues with the home run ball, but a 3.56 ERA and an even better 2.68 xFIP. Going up against a lefty, the Phillies are in Rodon. The Phillies have crushed lefties this season. They're number 4 in baseball in team OPS against lefties and number 4 in isolated power against lefties. And Rodon is in the bottom 41st percentile in hard hit percentage this season. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Phillies bats get a few home runs on him in this spot. I like Nola and the Phillies here at such a good price. Give me the Phillies on the money line. In our next game, we see the Seattle Mariners and the Baltimore Orioles battling it out in Camden Yards. Robbie Ray and Kyle Bradish are your starters here. Now, it's not easy to back the Seattle Mariners on the road where they've struggled so much away from home. And it's also not easy to fade the Orioles when they're the home underdog, as they've also had a lot of success as in the role of home underdog. But this is a spot where I'm going to take Seattle on the money line. You know, Robbie Ray has had his fair share of struggles with his new team this season, but I do think he is pitching a lot better right now than he did at the beginning of the season, just because his strikeout numbers are getting to where we saw him from last year. He's always going to have issues with the long ball because he's such a high-velocity pitcher. The walks have been down this year, which is a good sign to see from Ray, who's had issues with his control at times. But for me, the Orioles' kryptonite has been left-handed pitching this season. 24th in baseball in isolated power against lefties and 27th in baseball in team OPS against lefties. And Kyle Bradish has not been good enough on the mound for me to take a chance with the O's here. His ERA is above 7 to start the season. I think the Mariners bats get to Bradish. I think Ray puts together a solid outing. Give me the Mariners here on the money line. In our next game, we see the Chicago White Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays. Michael Kopech and Hyun-Jin Ryu are the starters for this one. Now, I really like taking the White Sox, especially when we're getting plus money on them when they're facing a left-handed starter. And that's exactly what the Chicago White Sox see here in Hyun-Jin Ryu, who is a lefty and has struggled quite a bit in 2022. Now, he has looked a lot better lately than he did at the beginning of the season, but his strikeout numbers are way, way down from last year, and that concerns me quite a bit. In his last 11 innings, he's only given up 2 earned runs, but he's only had 4 strikeouts in those innings also. And against the Chicago White Sox team that has not only hit lefties well this season, but also in recent years, I think Ryu is in trouble. White Sox number 6 in baseball in team OPS against lefties and number 8 in isolated power. And Michael Kopech has been really sharp on the mound for the White Sox this season. Not a guy that's going to go too deep into ball games, but he has been stretching his outings a little bit more and more. And we saw him go 7 innings last time against the Yankees. A big surprise for me there. He's had 8 days of rest now, or 9 days of rest even. And I think he's going to pitch well in this spot. Give me the White Sox here, getting a nice price with plus money. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Boston Red Sox. Hunter Green and Garrett Whitlock are your starters. Now, we know Hunter Green's struggles are dealing with the home run ball and the walks this season. He's got really good strikeout stuff. That's why he has 56 Ks this season in 44 and a third innings. That's top 30 in baseball, top 25 in baseball in strikeouts. However, the home run ball has really plagued this game this season. He's given up a total of 10 home runs in his last 5 outings, and he's pitching at Fenway Park. Last time out, he got the win. The Reds won the game by 15 runs in a green start, but he gave up 3 home runs and 5 earned runs in that game. It was a 20-5 final score. I think Green gets hit here. But on the other side, Garrett Whitlock also, he was really sharp at the beginning of the season for the Red Sox, but lately something in his game is not the same. He's given up 15 base hits in his last 9 innings, 7 earned runs, a home run. The strikeout numbers are down for him as well. Home runs allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. I'm going to take the over in this spot. I cannot lay that kind of price with the Red Sox, even with Whitlock on the mound. And I'm going to take the over. I think we see a high-scoring game here. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Detroit Tigers. Bailey Ober and Tarek Skubal are your starters here. Now, this has been a pretty grueling series as these teams have played a 4-game set, and they played a doubleheader on Tuesday. They're really going to need a lot of innings from their starters here, and I think Tarek Skubal is in a better position to go deeper in this ball game. I'm a big Bailey Ober fan. I've mentioned it before. He doesn't issue a lot of walks, but he also hasn't been as sharp this season as I saw in years past. He hasn't been able to go deep in the ball games either. The pitch counts have risen on him quite a bit. Last time he only went 3 innings, giving up 5 hits and 3 earned runs against the Royals, and he really hasn't faced the toughest of lineups lately either. Tarek Skubal, I think, is the far and away best starter in this Tigers rotation this season. He pitched well against the Guardians last time out. Didn't get the decision in that game as it was a 3-3 ball game for quite a bit until the bottom of the 9th inning. But Skubal, in 3 of his last 4 games that he started, Tigers have been able to win those games outright. And in his last 4 starts combined, where he's gone 7 innings, 6 innings, 5 innings, 7 innings, he's only given up 3 earned runs, plenty of strikeouts, no home runs allowed, and only 6 walks allowed in those outings. Also, give me the Tigers here on the money line, getting plus money as the home dog. In our next game, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Chicago Cubs. Now, we don't have an official starter listed for the Brewers quite yet, but we should see Kyle Hendricks for the Cubs here. Hendricks has struggled quite a bit lately. You look at his last 2 outings against teams that have below average lineups in the Reds and the Diamondbacks. Hendricks given up 5 home runs, 11 earned runs, and 13 base hits in 9 innings of work, only 4 strikeouts as well. And now you're taking on a Milwaukee Brewers lineup that's number 4 in baseball in team OPS against righties and number 3 in baseball in isolated power against righties. I think the Brewers and the Yankees are number 1 and 2 in any order in terms of bullpen, and if the Brewers decide to go with a bullpen game here, I think they're going to be pretty comfortable against the Cubs in this spot. I'm going to take the Brewers here on the money line, but we'll see what the price looks like. If it's a little too steep, I'll lay the run line with Milwaukee as well. Next up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Texas Rangers. Jeffrey Springs and John Gray are your starters here. Now, I mentioned that I do think John Gray is better than what his 5.56 ERA may suggest, but after watching him recently, I haven't been impressed with what he's done lately. Against the Oakland Athletics, he really struggled, giving up 5 earned runs and 2 home runs, all in 1 inning in that outing. I know the Rangers winded up winning that ball game, but they're not going to be facing an Oakland A's bullpen in this spot. They're facing a much tougher Rays pitching staff, led by Jeffrey Springs here, who's got a 1.62 ERA, 33 strikeouts and 33 in third innings. Nobody's really talking about him, but he's pitching deeper and deeper into ball games this season. Last outing, 6 innings against the Yankees, 2 runs allowed only with 6 strikeouts. Orioles, 5 2/3 innings, a shutout, 1-hit baseball. Previous start, 4 2/3 innings against the Blue Jays, shutout baseball. So he is pitching really well for Tampa Bay. I think he pitches well in this spot also. I'm going to take the Rays here on the money line on the road. In our final game of the night, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Jose Quintana and Mitch White are your starters here. This is a really tough game for me, not my favorite game on the board, just because the value we're getting is just not there in my opinion. It's tempting to take the road dog here, getting such a big price, and I know that 2.15 ERA from Jose Quintana makes it even more tempting to some, but I don't think he's pitching nearly as well as that ERA suggests. He's more of a pitch-to-contact guy, and he's been able to keep the ball in the yard well this season. But against the Dodgers, a much tougher lineup, especially the second time around where he's already faced them this season, I do think he is in trouble here. Mitch White has had his fair share of struggles, but the Pirates lineup has also struggled quite a bit overall against right-hand pitching this season, where they're ranked 26th in baseball in team OPS against righties and 26th in isolated power. A game I'm not going to be touching much, but I'm going to lay the run line here as a lean with the Dodgers. I'll lay the 1.5 runs at home. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday, June 1st. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And don't forget to put your picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.